모닝 파워! 모닝 터보!
Welcome back, everybody, to SSL Premiere. I hope you enjoyed 10 questions, 10 answers. That was one of the best.
Yeah, that might have been the best one ever, actually. So good.
See you in Challenger. Poor guy.
Well, he isn't necessarily going to Challenger if he wins all the rest of his matches, but it's out of his control. The same with Zest. I wore this shirt last week. See if he...
Did he wash this? That's the question, as lots of questions are asked about dirty pro gamers.
Yeah, I heard Trap is... 2-day, one-wash kind of guy.
Yeah, apparently SOS is only if there's a match will he wash. Kind of an interesting strategy he's got going there. Definitely like his StarCraft strats a little bit better. But it's Zest versus aLive. Another PVT. Hope you guys like these.
I'm a big fan. It's not one of our sponsors picks, Hoppy. aLive would have held it so well if it were.
Yeah.
So, talking about this matchup, obviously aLive has risen to the challenge of making himself a top 4 Terran in Korea. It was always a Terran to be feared back in Wings of Liberty. Heart of the Swarm, though, one of the weakest Terrans in Pro League, but since Legacy of the Void, he's really strengthened up his play. Seems to be top 4 right now. Zest, on the other hand, is totally struggling, really failing both in GSL and the SSL.
But here we go, guys. We'll see if he can pull it together for game 1.
Zest, 주성우, aLive, 한이서.
Fly better fly, Jinair. We got another one of those players playing later tonight. But first, up in the top left, it's Zest, the yellow Protoss.
Opponent to the bottom right is aLive in blue. For my insanity. Our map list, we didn't talk about it too much, will be Abyssal Reef, Newkirk, and Overgrowth. This will be the largest of our 3 2-player maps face off in this series. It's actually, aLive has the better record on 2-player maps currently, but Zest has just lost so many games in recent times, and is part of the reason why. I know a lot of fans are really disappointed with his performance recently, but if he wins this match and his match next week, and certain other losses occur, I don't actually have those offhand right now, he could potentially make it into the second day of Fastlane.
aLive is one of those. If he has to defeat aLive here to have a chance, and aLive is one of the people that he needs to lose in order to have a chance. Him and Maru, but Maru just took the win today, so they're really just fighting for that 8th place spot, which is where aLive is at right now. So both Zest and SOS are praying that Zest can win this matchup today, so that they don't get automatically relegated.
Indeed. So there's the second gas coming up. As we're just going to see a Gate Nexus core on this larger map. Still pretty safe for Zest, and aLive is going to go ahead and toss down this CC. Opening is going to be very standard. We'll see if Zest continues down the same path as we saw Patience going to the Oracle openings. Zest will do the same thing. Zest has been showing us some more unique and wonky openings recently, but having the proclivity of going Blink Stalkers in almost every matchup currently, even a little bit against Zerg when he was doing those Archon drops. We'll see if that's something he decides to hold the 3rd base, which is something that, you said you didn't want to necessarily attribute to Hero earlier, but even back in Heart of the Swarm, he was the Blink guy for holding 3rd bases.
He's found a way to make it work again.
Yeah, and I think that Zest will probably go down that style if he doesn't open with Stargate here. The Reaper is going to come in and scout to see if there's any missing pylons.
Everything pretty normal.
Yep.
Based on what he saw, but did not get to see the tech, which is, in fact, robotics coming out of Zest.
See if it's just going to be the rushed observers that we saw earlier. This will be confirmed with the delayed Reaper scout by aLive.
Nice angle that he took there, actually, to come in through the natural. He even picks up a probe and gets away. And this is something that you see a lot of the time when a player becomes kind of like the punching bag of a league, as we unfortunately had to name Zest and SOS as the two of this league, but the little things get away from them, like, you know, losing a probe, not just letting the Reaper get a scalp, but your Adept is so out of position that it gets the full scout of your base, and it gets a probe, and it gets away with full health. It's like, okay, that's like the beginning of kind of what we might see here in this matchup.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. The Cyclone's coming out here for aLive, which is interesting because he doesn't know for a fact that Zest is going to go for a Prism and go for an aggressive Adept attack. But that is in fact what Zest is doing here, and he has the answer to this with the Cyclone. Mothership Core is out here for the defense because he does have to still take into account the possibility of a Widowmine drop. So that's obviously something that is why this Observer is coming out. So this build for Zest is pretty aggressive, but it's also safe in terms of flexibility. But he sees the Prism. aLive has completely figured this out. Like, he didn't know for sure when he saw the Robo, but he is still just going to make this happen. I mean, he accounted for the possibility in the exact position where the Prism would come. And this entire opening from Zest now is completely shut down. He's going to transition into Disruptor drops.
Not like this. Oh, man.
I think you got to put the thinking emoji in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, the cancel. Oh, Zest is... Oh! Oh, man.
No.
No.
So close. Okay, finally. He's going to save that Widowmine. Nicely done there by aLive.
Oh, man, I had to hold my breath on that one. All right, well, he doesn't scout the Disruptor drop follow-up. Zest is going to add double Forges, too.
We don't really see this nowadays.
Yeah. Might as well just add a Fleet Beacon as well. Like, doesn't have a Stargate, but
yeah,
he's really just going to say, okay, well, I hope I'm going to be insanely greedy now because I'm really behind, and hope it works out.
Yeah. That's something we've been seeing out of Zest specifically. You know, he goes for different builds compared to other Protoss players, and they don't necessarily work out. aLive trying to get the most value possible out of this.
It's actually Colossus tech coming out super fast. He's going to have such a lack of buffer for the Colossi when the attack happens for aLive when he hits Stem Combat Shields and +1. This timing that we've seen so many times, you saw earlier from aLive, or sorry, excuse me, from Maru, now from aLive, he takes the third base. If aLive plays passively here, and he can get the third base, the 1-1, gets a decent Colossus count out, these gateways finish, he has the buffer for the Colossi, this can absolutely work out for Zest. It's, when you're behind like this, he's not massively behind, but when you have everything you've planned, everything you've opened, completely shut down, map control is given to the Terran, he's harassing you, forcing you to pull probes. So as you have to take a big risk like this, and you have to respect Zest for being as gritty as it comes right now. But aLive is taking a third base, and something with a slightly less powerful attack than what we saw from Maru. Doesn't have the Doom drop into the main to support this.
Yeah, I like aLive's kind of response here because he knows he's so far ahead that he can get away with this really early third base against Protoss, which you don't often see. Oh, that was really close to getting like 10 probe kills. But he also has this nice small group of units that will easily shut down this third base. When you're going for this kind of composition as the Protoss, you're just never going to be able to kill that amount of bio. With one Colossus with no range, that brings me back to 2015 when Maru was killing those kinds of Colossi builds that Protoss used to always do when the style was really prevalent. And Maru would just take them out with Marauders. And that's kind of what aLive is doing here.
Yeah, the 2014 Outboxer story, man, every time. Yeah. And this is going to be the Marine running in here, going to snipe some probes.
How many will it get?
Just 3. I said 3 kills, so I guess he got something else as well there, but we're not in this. Maybe he killed a probe earlier and came back now with this one. But the production for aLive with a much larger economy is going to be just quadruple Viking. He had quadruple for a while, so he has 4, now going to 6 with the 2 Medivacs. And these Colossi, the angle that he can attack with is going to be really hard pressed to micro those Colossi back.
He has 10 Stalkers, but no Blink. And when you're playing on Abyssal Reef, you kind of need Blink. There's a lot of ridges and cliffs. There's lots of good positions for your Vikings to get into. Loses the Mothership Core before it can do anything. Now coming in here with the drop to the third base, Zest will be in position to hold this off. But that small kind of ragtag group of units that's with the 2 Colossi right now cannot hold off against this bio attack.
Yeah, once the group of units actually collapses together here and he comes in, the Vikings, if they focus fire, now they will just be too much for the Colossi. This is almost pure Marauder against Colossus, Stalker. No Groundius, no Zealots, no Adepts. Adepts over here fighting some harassment, but this is the bigger story. This cannot be replaced by Zest. Finally gets an overcharge off, but he's going to lose his Mothership Core again. And those Vikings just need to chase down the Colossus, and that feels like the end of the story here. Landed Vikings for the defense, and these Adept units, once they're cleaned up, will be the end of the game. GG. aLive.
aLive takes it. I mean, this is kind of what we were expecting, but I love the confidence that he played with in that game. Just sending his units to the perfect position. It was like he was playing with map hacks. Obviously he wasn't, but he was like, okay, I know exactly where you're going to send your War Prism, so I'm going to get my Cyclone and Ragtag group of Marines there just in time. Takes that out, takes full map control, never let Zest really secure all the greed that he wanted to go for. Like, let's be real, Double Forge, Colossus, third base, you just can't do that against a Terran who scouts you, or any kind of good Terran really at all. It's just not going to work. And as you said, I think it was a good idea to try to go for some greed, but I feel like that was the maximum overdrive greed from Zest, and aLive is good enough to punish that hardcore, and that's why that game was so one-sided.
His pressure was able to identify the Colossus tech. He went double starport just to be safe, had the answer there in the Vikings, and looks like we're going to jump into game number 2 right away, guys. Newkirk Precinct. Zest is going to have to step it up, but this could be a very quick best of 3. Let's jump into game number 2.
Here we go into map number 2. Down in the bottom right, the Protoss player that still has a big group of the fans cheering for him, hoping that he can get back on the horse. It is Zest.
Down here at the bottom left, it is aLive. Still feeling the pain from that def loss to Patience. He traveled to play in the Ting Open offline. Fortunately, did not make it there to the grand finals. Was defeated in the semis, but he's back here. Had a great run through the Super Tournament. And, you know, the build that we saw from Zest in the last game, let's talk about this for a minute, because it's so unusual to see the solo robo. aLive was able to get full scouting information of this. We saw Patience do a very similar build against Maru, but he went for the safer opening with the Observers. Against a player like Zest, aLive was able to identify, knowing Zest's playstyle and also how poorly he's performed in this league, that there was a high chance that he was going to go for a War Prism attack. Made the Cyclone just to be safe. If an Observer flies in, then his Widowmine drop is going to be pretty weak, and he committed to the Cyclone there, maybe a little bit too safe. But aLive was willing to take that risk, and he was also confident enough to go and spot for that Prism, just to make sure it was coming, saw it, and when you commit that much and you get exactly what you want, you see the Prism in the exact position, you know its rally locations, you practice so many times on this map, it's the best feeling in the world of everything went right for me and everything went wrong for you. So in terms of momentum in this series, aLive is going to have to feel incredible, because he took a risk in terms of, it wasn't even a risk, but he made a commitment defensively there, and it really paid off. You know, sometimes you'll see Terrans cut missile turrets against a Zerg player because they're not sure Mutas come in, and the Mutas come in and kill them. You make missile turrets, and Mutas don't come, you feel bad, but when you commit that extra money and you get the value, that's what we see, and this is going to be a very fast Stargate coming out from Zest in game 2.
Yep, got those gases early. Does have the Stargate, Mothership Core, and Adept here, hoping that aLive does not go for a scout. We might just see a very similar kind of, actually no, in the first game aLive went for a Reaper, but this time around it looks like he's going for the double barracks kind of play with an earlier command center, and just wants to get a lot of Marines out with the Widowmines, perhaps wants to go for drops of his own, but needs to play it safe because he's going to have an Oracle in his base very, very soon.
Very promptly, Mothership Core going to come scout, do a little bit of harass as well. Problem with it, skipping the Reaper is that you just don't have that extra piece of information. But with the second barracks coming up, Doesn't actually commit to his starport just yet. He's going to use the Widow Mine purely defensively here. Something that Zest will like to identify. He's actually going to see this pop out of the factory. He's going to engage onto these Marines, it looks like. Gets the one. We'll need to recall home after the second. Does get out. So that's actually pretty good. That means less Marines on the defense for the Oracle, but this is now super obvious to aLive exactly what the follow-up is going to be. He has the first Widow Mine here already in position. The second one is on its way. No starport, however, so no Viking or anything like that, but if he avoids the Widow Mine, which it looks like he is so far, this could do some serious damage.
Widow Mine totally out of place. There's only 4 Marines immediately going to go for them. And this is something you talk about a lot, taking out the Terran army before even the SCVs. There's just no defense.
Yeah.
With that Mothership Core coming on in, this is getting crazy amounts of damage.
I like his choice to kill the Marines instead, honestly. Kill the Marines instead, kill the SCVs later when you have more energy. 12 kills on this Oracle. This is partially due to a misplaced Widow Mine, but more to do with the fact that he killed those Marines with the Mothership Core. Even if the Widow Mine's in position, perhaps Zest just avoids it and finds the same damage anyways. Very well played. Warp Gate research is done now, and he's going to that blink we were talking about before. See if he wants to use this to hold a third Nexus. We'll find out in just a moment.
If Zest made a second Oracle and he just camped the barracks, aLive would have had to wait for a Viking to come out to eventually push the Oracles back, but instead, Zest, he's content with just the 12 kills, and he does immediately transition into Blink. He can follow up with a really strong attack with Blink. I mean, as we were talking about before, aLive's army is going to be a lot smaller because of how many units he did lose earlier on.
He's considering it, you know. He's adding 3 Stalkers more right now. It's going to help defend against this drop. But the Probe is in position to drop the third Nexus at the 3 o'clock base. This is going to be what Zest decides to do. You know, the lack of army could make a follow-up attack stronger, but it also makes taking a third base a lot easier too. That's why killing the army of a Terran is so important. A lot of Stalkers here in position. He wants to bait this, looks like. Going to overcharge, and aLive is not even going to stick around, but I think he really wants to bait this, and actually maybe he's successful because Blink is done. There's the Blink, and will he get it? He does! Nicely done, Zest! With a great game number 2 here. All the answers so far.
Yeah, it's weird because in game number 1, nothing was going right for aLive, or rather for Zest. Now in game number 2, nothing's going right for aLive. Literally nothing. Zest hitting all the timings with all of his units in the right position.
He wants to put some pressure on with these Stalkers now as he transitions into the Glaives, the 2 Forges. And he has a third Nexus he can saturate. He's still continuing to produce probes. He has vision here with the Oracle. He's going to blink in. There's just not enough stuff here at home.
Even with Stim, he has to pull the SCVs. He's just that far behind at this point. Now we can see the Blink Stalker micro down the hill. And the Oracle
turns on too.
This 17 kills, 18 kills. He's a master.
Oh, look at that. Gets the Widow Mine before it burrows. I think this might actually just be too much. I mean, he doesn't have a third base. He's trapped. Zest is not going to try to kill him right now, but I mean, can this even be recovered? Look at that. He only lost the 1 Stalker all game long.
Yeah. This game is as good as done. I feel like aLive is just thinking about the next one. Thinking about, you know, what can he do going into Overgrowth for that game number 3, because you certainly do not want to take a loss against one of the lower level players in this league, especially after taking a loss this brutal in game number 2.
It's not necessarily completely over, but there are just very few windows back into the game here for aLive. I feel like one of them would be the Doom Drop. You're always anxious to do that against a large Blink Stalker force. The pylon set up in the main base, he's already seen it. And had forced to make a bunker here at the Natural to survive. Instead of the Doom Drop, he's going to pressure with the double Widow Mine drop. But he's just at half the worker count of Zest currently. He's not +1 and concussive shells soon. The longer he waits, though, the more that economy of Zest is going to build into a larger army. He has a very small window of time to try to end this game. He's going to really struggle, but I think that's his best option. Taking a third base and waiting it out is certainly not going to be the answer. He's now moving across the map with his army while the drop is heading into the main base.
All these pylons. So much just careful play.
Hesitation there on the pickup.
Out of Zest. He's going to be totally fine against these Widow Mines. Has his army in position, has all the scouting information necessary, even the Oracle very close to tagging those units. will be ready to make the defense.
Pylon wiped out here, but it just buys time for Zest. Try to knock down that cooling tower. He's got a large amount of firepower. Would not blame him for it if he commits. Wants to get that one Widow Mine. Photon Cannon's going to clear this one. He's just going to even fight. Doesn't even want to deal with that cooling tower. Down goes the Widow Mine. Here's a secondary drop. It's not a Doom drop, but it's already spotted by this Adept. We don't have observers. Adept is the next biggest thing, next best thing. Moving this Pylon actually closer here. But look at this. Stalker's coming up already, and he may actually just be blinked on here.
Good split on the units by Zest. That's basically the perfect amount of Stalkers that you need to hold this off. Even saving the Medivacs is aLive. Knows that he can't really get out of there with the blink.
Gets the one targeted Stalker down. I guess that works out. The Oracle's still alive with 19 kills. And I feel like this is the last attempt that aLive has. After this, if he trades poorly or even evenly, the economy of Zest is starting to really pay for itself. Going to have the 2-2 upgrades as well. It's going to be 3 upgrades ahead. This army gets caught, and I think that is just going to be us going to game number 3.
Looks like it. Going to take out the entirety of that army. One more small drop coming into the main as a 4th base goes down for Zest.
He's got a good angle here at the top of the ramp, but he's vastly outnumbered. Widow Mines being placed here to be annoying. Zest is going to have to take the long walk home, and actually some of his buildings get unpowered. He's going to look for the Cybernetics core here. Here's the Widow Mines. One shot. Second one is revealed, but it's out of range. Looks like the Observer's just right in range to see that, so he doesn't get hit by the second one.
Looks like aLive actually targeted his Widow Mine on the Adept, so it couldn't be blinked, that shot. So aLive really trying his heart out here as he is struggling. He's scratching his way up the cliff. His fingernails bleeding at this point.
Yeah, but he killed the Cybernetics core. That's going to be a temporary hiccup and temporary interruption into Zest's production of ground army to support his tech. He has the Robotics Bay coming in soon. 3-3 on the way as well. So remember, he's 3 sets of upgrades ahead. In just a second, he'll just be the 2 with the +1 armor finishing, but 1 whole set, +2 to the +1. And 4th base is up. And aLive is starting to get some Liberators out. Going to try to take some really cost-efficient engages while he holds on to the 3rd. He doesn't even have it landed yet. Just in the main base. So safe right now with what he's doing. There's no AoE in this army though for Zest, so even with the upgrade advantage, Huduai is not too hard engaged here. He sees there's no 3rd base up, so no reason to heavily commit to the fight. You look for some harassment options instead.
Yeah, I really like the tenacity out of aLive. I mean, he was so far behind half the worker count of Zest and down a base, and he's still in the game. He's still trying to crawl his way back, and if he gets a big drop in the main, I mean, this is a big map. He's got Blink Stalkers, Zest does, but you can see a lack of pylons over here at the 4th base, no cannons. But in position here to stop the drop. Looks like Zest knows exactly the way that aLive wants to come back into the game.
aLive has no units at home except rallied units. The rest of his army's in the middle of the map here. Speaking of which, half of that's going to get caught on the unload. GG! aLive tried his heart out to fight his way back into this one, but was just unsuccessful in finding the options there. There weren't very many of them. The drops were constantly shut down. The scouting of Zest was good. The Adept in position towards his main base. He was always aware of when the drops were coming in, even making a Photon Cannon to help deal with that Widow Mine in the main. Just calm, passive, collected defense after having that massive lead. And it all went wrong when aLive lost those Marines in the Mothership Core, did not have a proper answer there for the Oracle. And one Oracle can win you the game in this matchup in the early game if your Widow Mine isn't in position, or if Zest just completely avoids it, caps the barracks, takes a 3rd base, has a massive lead in army. So we're going to set 3. The map will be Overgrowth, a much smaller one than the previous maps.
And honestly, after game 1, I wasn't expecting to go to game 3. I thought aLive was going to sweep the series, but Zest, I mean, he's still got it. He still has those timings down and that good decision-making early game as we were talking about. So he's got an opportunity to do something pretty funky here on a very short map of Overgrowth. We'll see what he can muster up against aLive, game number 3. here in the top right. The Protoss player making it interesting. It's Zest.
And down here, the bottom left, in blue, it is aLive. Terran player looks to close out this series after a tough loss in the previous set. Zest with the fast probe scout here. Says the map to be concerned about proxies on. Gonna start his gate at home, not at the top of the ramp, but in the main base. The probe can just do some harassment here. It's going to be normal barracks opening with a gas. Might be able to use this probe to block the CC afterwards, obviously. Not going to last too long in this base.
This is just coming back into play, this early probe. As you said, it makes you safe against the proxies, but it's very annoying. The SCV has to come off the line, and even a second one once the CC is being made, so it's definitely worth it. Like that Protoss players across the board here in Korea have adapted this into their play, added this in. Zest going to go for Gateway Nexus Core. So no super fast Stargate this time around, even though it worked out in Game 2. So wants to go back. And you see the Reaper opening here from aLive.
Going to be same opening in terms of Nexus timing. For Zest, this is the CC block I was talking about. Nearly gets the SCV kill. One more zap would have done it. It's interesting in terms of the storyline of Zest through this round robin stage. The pennant race was just a straight up, every series except his first against Innovation has gone to a Game 3. So despite the fact that he has a bad record in this tournament, he's always fought back. Most of the time in Game 2 actually. Just had some struggles though to finish the series, and it's so disappointing if you're a Zest fan to see him just not able to close it out. But what matters way more than whether your games went to Game 3 or not is that you won the series. Is unable to do so far in this tournament.
Yeah, I guess the same must have been said about SOS, who has the same set score, indicator score at 6 and 13. So it's just that little bit of something that they've lost in the downtime in between seasons, in between years, with the change-up of the teams coming in here. So, but then again, that's what happens when you have best of threes. You have to show up every day for this kind of format, be able to take those set wins. This time we do see Zest going for something more interesting, which is the robotics facility into Twilight Council. This definitely opens up stuff like, adept play, where you can get that earlier Warp Prism to come out, plus go for the Resonating Glaives and the 3 gateways and put on pressure that way. And another one that could happen would be the Dark Templar tech, but I think the Twilight Council usually comes out first, so you can get that Dark Shrine out a bit faster. Either way, he really wants to deny the scout here from the Reaper. And it actually is going to be Blink. I should have looked at who the Protoss player is in the booth first before assuming it was Glaives.
So it looks like the Robo is just for safety, not a Prism at the stage. And there's the Observer. And aLive's moving across the map
too, actually.
Very quickly. The Observer will spot this. As I mentioned, yes, the first one is already out. So he sees this. To get into position, he's going to shade to confirm whether the army is going to actually fully commit. There's only one pylon. It's actually at a weird angle. He can hit that left pylon without the top pylon being able to hit his army. So there's the overcharge first of all. He's going to wait for that to wear off before he engages, if he engages at all. Stim isn't ready yet. Down goes the Reaper. Which is basically made of cardboard. So Stim nearly done, but combat shields and +1 far away, and it looks like aLive is willing to just walk away here, knowing that Zest is staying heavily on the 2 base and does not have any tech that does not have a weakness that he can really exploit right now with the tech he has. Looks like it's going to be Colossi again. The double forge is what Zest has been relying on, and when he holds on and survives, obviously the upgrades do really well. He had the massive upgrade lead all game long in Game 2. See if he can hold on aLive is going to scout this fairly soon. He needs drop ships, though, to get into the main base to know this is coming.
And again, this type of blink play that Zest is doing is very different from Hero's type of play. Hero usually goes Stargate into Twilight and then gets the blink with a much earlier third base. But as you pointed out, it's all about the Colossi tech and the double forges and the super passive play. You can see that Zest doesn't really move out on the map unless he can get trades like this with blink. Otherwise, he's just going to be sitting in his base, hoping that aLive cannot hit his 1-1, you know, get into those forges or do any damage, and that he can take a very late and safe third base eventually. Especially on a map like this, like Overgrowth, where the third base is pretty far away from your main, and it's not as easily defendable as, say, you know, Abyssal Reef, where it's closer.
aLive is actually going to sneak around the left side here to look for that third base. Scans to remove any observers that might have been lurking around before he sets up the secondary drop he's going to send. So he wants to hit the third base and the main base, but he doesn't know Zest actually doesn't have a third Nexus. So he's going to come over here and say, oh, okay, that's odd. And that might actually cause him to turn around, because it's a little bit scary when you're like, yeah, he scans here, he's like, are you going to all-in me? What is this? What am I facing here? Zest is just playing super safe because he knows that if he holds this, has the 1-1 upgrades.
Look at this. I mean, there's just no units here right now. All the Blink Stalkers are out on the map, plus the Colossi, and this big drop into the main, the 2 medevacs with the stim and the combat shields here is going to do a number. Going to take out both of these pylons.
Needs to be careful, though. That's a lot of expensive Terran army here that he could have lost to the Blink Stalkers there. Does hold on for now, but he knows that if he can hold on, get his 1-1, get the range for his Colossi, he can control this map, he can take the third Nexus and start to harass aLive. He has that mobile army with the Blink Stalkers. The army of aLive obviously is much stronger, though, during this period of time before the 2 Colossi are ready, so he looks for some pickoffs. I feel like Zest handled it, all things considered, pretty well. And he has the forges spinning, can start 2-2 immediately, and that third Nexus is his next target.
I mean, this is one of the most vulnerable times, you know. I think the absolute most vulnerable time is after you get your third base and the Terran goes into double starport and has the Vikings to use. I think that's the scariest moment, but that was like the second most, and he held it off decently well. You know, it wasn't with flying colors, but he holds on, and he has that 2-2 spinning, and he just needs to hope that he can defend up until now. This kind of style out of Zest is very much just like, I'm going to turtle as much as possible and hope you don't kill me, ultra passive. And that's what he's looking to do, defend, defend, defend.
Such a tech-oriented build. This is very much what we used to see in Wings of Liberty. This is the style that Creator on Prime at the time really revolutionized. To just defend on 2 base, get double forges, massively get ahead with Protoss upgrades because they scale so well into the late game. Overcharge is coming down, 3 of them here. He's actually going to target down the pylons, but this buys a lot of time for Zest to get the rest of his army over here. However, the attack at the third base at the same time is something he's going to have to deal with. Not a whole lot of Vikings here, though. That's my biggest concern for aLive, fighting this army. These Marauders get trapped into the wall by the Zealots. These 2 Marauders are a long way away from anybody.
And all of a sudden, aLive kind of failing in his multitasking, not microing either of his 2 groups of units all that well. Loses the trade in the main. You know, he takes out some pylons, but that's about it. These 2 Marauders did more damage than both of the giant armies that he had combined. As he lost a bunch of units over at the left side at the third base, he didn't do any damage to it. I feel like he could have kited down that third base, maybe even gotten it really low for a follow-up drop, or maybe even taken it out with the amount of Marauders that he had. But overall, just a bit of weak control, and now we're at even supplies as 2-2 finishes up for Zest.
Well,
only 1-1 for aLive.
One of the things about what Zest has been doing is he just doesn't have a lot of probes built. It's at 42 currently. aLive has the ability to transition into another base very easily with the worker count he has. It's always a terrible thing when the Terran is ahead in SCVs against a Protoss because of mules. So he has the ability to remake his army very quickly. He's got the better economy. He's not missing a beat with his macro. He's behind in terms of tech, but he has the Viking count now finally to contest these Colossi directly. Even though he failed with some of his multitasking in that last engage, he's down a set of upgrades, but he has the tech he needs. If he fights this army, the micros well, he can absolutely take it head on. Even the fact that he's down a set of upgrades, it's all about the Colossi. Look, he's just going to bully this. Not enough Stalkers here, just the 4. These Colossi are going to be knocked out of the fight immediately. That's going to remove all the AoE. And then this Terran army is just going to fight this, look, slow Zealots on the ground without AoE. This is a great fight for aLive. Vikings even going to land in the natural here as he's trying to wipe out those probes. Zest is forced to pull. This Nexus is very low.
He's going to take out the Nexus, but he'll lose his entire army over here. Meanwhile, the Vikings are getting a ton of damage on the right side.
He might actually get both Nexi, though. He doesn't commit to this one.
Yeah,
it's actually, yeah, it's too healthy.
Yeah. But now Zest, he's got a very strong army still. Unfortunately, he didn't have his entire army all together at the beginning, or he would have held that even better. And now he's going for the attack, as he knows that aLive committed heavily to taking out that Nexus.
The Vikings are mostly going to die, too. They're all super low, as you guys saw for just a moment there, back on the other side of the map. So just coming over here, forcing this base to lift. He's got more Vikings coming out of the starports because he had that massive SCV lead. I was talking about a huge economy to reproduce units. This is actually going to cost him a Colossus here. The Colossus microing back. There's some Liberators sieging up in perfect position. The force field's actually not doing too much for him in this army, landing the Vikings now. And it looks like aLive is going to hold this. Just not enough answer for those Liberators. The orbital has actually been replaced here. He needs to get the rest of his army together, though. It looks like it's just rallying from the main base, but this Protoss army is just not enough. He drops the mules. He knows he's safe. He's just, the reason why this looks so struggly for aLive right now is actually partially due to the fact that he's down in upgrades. Now the +3 armor is going to be here for Zest. So this Gateway army normally not able to tango with the bio, but with these heavy upgrades, yeah.
He actually went for double defensive upgrades after 2-2 and got the +1 shields instead of the +3 attack. So wanted to make his army extremely defensively strong.
It's so powerful against the Vikings because the Vikings attacks apply twice with their rockets to the Colossi. Doesn't have any Colossi left in this army. Looks for the Liberator pick, gets it. Nicely done. Zest just needs to rebuild his economy right now, trying to harass. Looks like there's a few stalkers there.
He just ran underneath this Liberator and lost like 4 units. I was watching that on the mini-map. So
I didn't see that, but I don't think Zest did either, man. That was not good.
No. Zest, now he's really trying to force it, but at the same time he's replacing that third Nexus while making Colossi, so I think he needed to keep these units back at home.
Upgrades or no, this is just not an army that can defeat Bio. There's too many medevac series. Microing with the Prism. The +2 attack is going to finish here for aLive as well, and now he's not as far ahead of in upgrades as he used to be. Gonna grab this Stalker, it looks like. Nice micro by Zest, but it's just too little too late. Need AoE against Terran, or at least more Adepts with the Glaives. Just fighting this straight up despite his upgrade advantage. He lost those Colossi early on. Couldn't replace them. The Nexus being gone, just too expensive. And now he's got 2 Chronoed Forges that aren't spinning anymore.
This is a very weird game now because of Legacy of the Void. Both of these players are essentially mining on 2 bases. The thing is that aLive will eventually send his orbital over to the right side so that he can mine once again, whereas Zest is, once it gets down to this kind of game, you really, you can't float the next size. So
he's long distance mining, actually aLive is as well during all of this to get some extra money. He has the better worker count with the mules. And that's been the case for quite some time now. Zest finally has his third base reconnected. He's like, oh.
The chandelier.
Yeah, let's pop the balloons of the sentries, drop it on top. And that is just going to be the end of this army. Colossus actually pretty tanky with all these upgrades, but this is the best fight that Zest could have ever asked for, but it's still not enough.
Man, aLive really having trouble ending this game out, but it looks like he eventually will. As the Nexus goes down, we'll snipe this Colossus.
No more force fields. There goes the Colossus. More micro here with the Stalkers. Almost looks like I'm watching a pre-deployed map or something, but not going to be enough here. Yeah, the last Colossus will fall, and so will Zest. A promising series for him here, but it's just not going to be his. GG.
aLive, he finally takes it. You can see that he doesn't look all that happy because that series was a lot harder than it had to be. You can see that aLive is really feeling it too. Zest, he made a case for himself to have potential to not be relegated out of Premier, but with that loss, he definitely will be.
Yep, so. He is, with this loss, relegated to Challenge. Will not be playing in Premier next season, so if he fails to qualify for GSL Season 3, you may not see Zest play in a Korean League until 2018, in terms of Premier. He will play in Challenge, of course, but not in the Premier League here. Got in front of the fans as SOS, I believe, is behind him. So they come and chat with him after that one. He and Zest both down at the bottom. If SOS loses the next match against Innovation, he will also be directly relegated to Challenge. He said he was already there in his 10 questions and answers, but that's not technically true unless he loses his best of 3, plays against Innovation.
Well, when you had to beat Innovation and Patience, it's a pretty tall order for our Protoss player SOS, who has already not done too well.
Indeed, well, that was a sad ending there for Zest. Still has a match to play next week, of course, against Dark. But our next matchup of the night, the final matchup, will be SOS against Innovation, as mentioned. We're going to go into that after a short commercial break. See you guys in just a few.